through the units that we need to cover, everything that we've gone through for the period of this year, right? Until to date.
So yes, but with your test, it will be more theory. And then because the practical or the calculations you will do in the assignment. Okay, so the test will be
Understood.
theoretical. There's an online quiz that I've loaded, and then I can't share it with you. So over the weekend, I'm gonna sit again, and you'll have a week to complete the quiz. It will give you an idea of what the test will be like, the June test. The assignment is only due at the end of August. So yeah.
People, when they interview people, they change those ability to against.
I'm gonna have something created now. I feel like being more.
But Tabile, you are broadcasting. Tuko, your hand is up. And then Paul can follow right after you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. I just wanted to ask, the test, is it for June, as in like during the text week?
Yes.
For
not
PLE.
the online quiz. So I'm gonna give you an online quiz that you will do as soon as I can post it because I have it, but for some reason it won't post. But so that you will have like an entire week to do it. It's not a long quiz. It should take you about 30 minutes to do. In your own time, you'll have I'll set a deadline on it. But and then there'll be like the test where you have to sit and write a test.
And I'm wondering because are you saying for PLE, not CLA?
Yes, PLE.
No, but you're not on the timetable, and I don't know. I had no information that we're writing PLE now.
All right, I will just find out from the department when they need it to they need the test written, and I'll tell you why. So you remember that your course is accredited. You have to write at least 2 tests where you're sitting down and writing a test. Okay, and then we can do everything else. So the online quizzes are usually to assist with marks in the event that a student is like sitting at 45 or something like that, and you are like, this is a capable person, they probably failed because of the nerves and something like that. So you can look at the online quizzes and say, okay, they did so well in the quiz, they did. So the assignment is not a replacement for the test. You still have to do 2 tests. And in April, we could not do a test. We had not covered enough work to justify a test. So I had asked, but I will take it up with the department to find out when they want you to write the PLE test, but you need to write a PLE test.
Okay, but could you please push for that to be done really quickly? Because like, so in case it's probably going to need it to be added on a day where we already have a test so we can prepare ahead. Because the timetable has been revised twice now, but thank you.
All right, no, not a problem. I don't have a copy of the timetable and I did ask for it.
Oh, yeah. Let me send it to you now. Sorry.
All right. No problem. No problem. I will just check and I will just ask them if they want you guys to write 2 tests at the end of the year. Because I can also do that. We can push everything to the end of the year and then you write a 5-hour paper. I am quite capable. So whatever works. I don't like lumping 2 tests on the same day. And I don't like lumping law with anything else. It's a lot of reading work and yeah. So the whole test week thing is not my idea of fun. I don't like it. I feel for you. So I will try. Unfortunately, the university doesn't allow Saturdays. I think it was last year when I was asking them because the timetable was so packed and I said, I don't mind doing it on a Saturday. I was like, no, university policy, we can't do it on a Saturday. And I was like, oh, okay, fine. They'll write 2 tests a day. So yeah. Okay, any questions with regards to the assignment? We discussed it last week, so and we went through the spreadsheet last week. So I just need to know if you have any questions with regards to that. I am looking for my slides, so if you have your hand up, I won't see it. So if you have anything to say, just speak. Okay, so I see somebody saying PLE is on the October and August. So you won't write it in June, you will write it in August. That's fine. I'll save the test for August. And then you'll be submitting the assignment and also writing the test. So you can submit, you'll be here for the test. If that's okay with everyone, then I'm also just okay with that. Babalo, the scope is what we have done. It's the work we have done in class. And like I said, I will not ask you the practical part where you do calculations and all of that in a test because you're doing it in the assignment. Sorry, I'm on a temporary laptop because my laptop was acting up. So me looking for information here is a bit tricky. So yeah, if you could just give me a moment. So I've spoken about this before, but now that we have, oh, there's a hand up. Did I not say I'm not looking? Matsidi's, I said speak up. You can come through. I was about to miss your hand because I'm looking at my own things here, trying to find documentation. You can come through, ma'am.
Okay, hi, ma'am. I just wanted to clarify the test situation. So because the test is in PLEs in October and August, that's when we're going to write. And then that 1 week, you're just gonna give us the quiz. Is that what you're saying?
No, the quiz you're going to get now as soon as I get my technology knowledge working. I don't know, for some reason, I loaded a quiz for, what is it, CLA, and we never had a problem. And now I can't do the same for this particular quiz. I don't know what the issue is, but the quiz is there. As soon as I'm able to. So it will be before you close now. It will be a quiz. And like I say, you have a week to finish it or however long. Like I'll give you time so that you can do it even on a Saturday. And I generally give 2 attempts. So you do it. And this is a sort of a legacy of when we had load shedding and it would just, things would change abruptly. So you find that you've given students 1 chance and power goes off and then that thing auto submits and so yeah, you have 2 opportunities to do the test. So it will be like an easy one, like the one you had for CLA. But I will load it, or I will at least make it visible to students because I think I've loaded it, but getting you guys to see it is the difficult part, and I don't know why. I don't know what's different on this thing.
Okay, thank you. Noted.
All right. Thanks.
Sorry, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it possible that that quiz, you just give it to us as like something that we use to prepare? Because honestly, we are drowning every day. Is submission, guys.
No, to be honest, so the drowning is part of the territory. Unfortunately, I can give it to you as preparation, right? But in the event that I need to motivate why the dean should consider you passing even though you didn't quite make it, I will not have that information. So I can even make it that you submit during your holidays. I'll give you time to submit it, but I will give you a quiz. So unfortunately, you took so many subjects and this is the way. And also, because the timetable now no longer starts in Feb, I muted you because there's an echo if I don't, right? Sorry. So it compresses the year and it makes it very difficult. And for the degree to remain accredited, you have to do certain things. We're not being difficult for the sake of being difficult. When the councils come to assess you, everything needs to be in place. We need to show that you can do 1, 2, 3. You are able to work under pressure. You're able to do this. You went through this. You went through that. If we don't, then the degree will not be accredited, and you're going to have a hard time in industry. So it's not lecturers being difficult for the sake of being difficult. We've had a difficult time because then the matric results are now coming at the beginning of the year. That impacts when universities reopen. And this is why everything is just towards the end of the year, there's submission. It's going to get worse in September. This is why I was hoping you write your test now, because it's going to get worse in August or September. Everything will be due, and then there'll be presentations and defending your thesis and all of these things. So yeah. All right. So this is what I wanted to talk about in terms of how you do your assignment. We need to start with either property law or valuation. I'm just waiting for a confirmation from the head of property economics in terms of what you covered last year. So if I know I need to go on to property law or FI, or if we do property valuations. So this is the pipeline in terms of doing a feasibility study. I do hope you can see my screen there. Okay, silence means you can. We have found a site. Thank you. At the corner of Albertina Sisulu and I think it's that block, Albertina Sisulu, Pixley Isaka Kaseme and Helen Joseph there. That's where the site is. So you found a site. So what you need to, the information that will follow is that gaining planning permission. So you don't necessarily for this assignment have to go to the city and ask for permission to develop, right? What I need here is what information is required. So you can find out what that site is zoned for, right? You can find out what the allowable floor area ratio, floor space ratio for that particular site is, so that when you make a proposal for a development, we know you would not be encroaching into municipality regulations. We know you will not be encroaching into space that you should not be encroaching into. You're not introducing anything that is not allowed by the city. So what is the restriction in terms of height? How many floors can you go up? And if it's going to be, let's say, a residential area, or you're going to build shops, whatever it is, or offices, what are the requirements in terms of parking? So the city of Joburg, because this is in the CBD, the city of Joburg will have their own requirements for office buildings, for residential buildings, depending on how many square meters you have. They'll tell you how many bays per how many square meter. Right. In terms of shopping malls, it's also the same. Depending on the size of the shopping mall, they'll tell you how many parking bays they need and how many of those have to be for disabled people. So that is the information that you need to find out if there are any servitudes against that site. You know, and then you move on to the third part, which is securing financial backing. I will not expect you to be speaking to financial institutions, but what you're going to do is whatever it is that you are proposing, you need to show that it is bankable. You need to show that it can be achieved, and then the investor will make money, and you show over what period. This you do on Excel. I showed you that table last week that I said may look confusing, but as we start to break it down slowly, then you will get it. And I think the most complicated part, I mean, the measuring part, estimating how much the building will cost is not the difficult part. They're trying to show when you do your financial cash flows and you want to show that money can be made on that. I mean, if you look at it and you think it has exposure, you could say we could have a bot there advertising and start generating income. You could come up with ideas like that so that even before the building is up, you're already generating income from it. And then in terms of who your development would appeal to, so this is what you could sell to financiers to say, okay, this is the development, this is how much money it could make, this is what the market looks like, this is what we believe can be achieved in however many years. And I can tell you, so in order for a development to break even realistically, you look between 5 to 10 years. Considering where the economy is now, I think you are also aware that Stats SA released the unemployment stats and unemployment has gone up. So the economy is not doing too well. So when you make your proposal and all of that, take that into account, that people do not have disposable income. We are not in an economic peak. There is a huge possibility that if under normal circumstances, it would take you 5 years to break even on the money that you have spent. Chances are with this one, it may take you 7 to 10 years because of how things are. The petrol price has just gone up. What does that mean for the cost of construction? So you have to take those factors into account. I unfortunately do not have a subscription of the indices, but you can make assumptions in terms of what you think will happen to the cost of building, to the cost of construction. And remember also, when you propose this building, this is an old city of Joburg. The infrastructure, when you think about your costs, there's also the bulk contribution that the city of Joburg will want you to pay. So this is an amount of money that goes to the city under the guise that they will improve the bulk infrastructure in the area. You can't keep on introducing high density buildings on the same old infrastructure. It eventually collapses. And then we have a burst sewer pipe and we have sewer running down the street, or we have burst water pipes, or we have stormwater that is not being drained properly, and then it floods buildings or it floods your basement. So you would have to pay bulk infrastructure to the city, and bulk contribution, not bulk infrastructure, bulk contribution. And you would have to find out how much it runs at. Generally, the city will tell you based on the development. I mean, offices have been developed before, so you'd have to find out just around how much do they charge, around how much do, and so that secure financial backing, construct new development would be pretty much this one big report, because you will tell us the cost of constructing. You're not going to construct it. You're only now making a proposal of what should happen to that open space. All right. And at the end of the investment life of that asset, what do you want to do with it? So for now, the assumption would be you're building an office block and you're going to rent it out, but how long do you intend to keep it? And then at the end, you sell it. So you would also show that as income. So you'd make rental income over maybe, let's say, 22-year period. And then at the end of the 22-year period, you sell the building. So that is all the income you make. Or you're going to build an apartment building, and then you're going to sell off those units. So again, you would show that you're selling off the units, and this is how much a unit would go for. And this is why I want to do valuation with you, so that when you put a price to the units and you say you can make money from it, you can explain, or you are not unrealistic in terms of who would want to buy an apartment in the CBD? How much would they be willing to pay? I mean, if you're going to charge the same rates as Sandton, why would a person opt for the Joburg CBD as opposed to going into Sandton? How many units are you going to have? How much are you going to sell them for? How long do you think it will take you before you've sold every unit in the development? And how much will that bring? You know, how much of that is going to go towards repaying the debt? How much profit is the developer going to make? And remember, if he must wait for his money, there's an opportunity cost. So you need to factor that in as well. So that is just how you're going to do the assignment. So I'm going to go on to another example, a simplified example of a viability study or financial viability. Sorry, I just need to tell my sons to keep it low. I don't know if you can hear them, but I can. They're screaming down the passage. Sorry. Okay, so just remember to also just add your notes with everything. So any assumptions, limitations. So for instance, if certain information was not available. So for instance, it could be that you're developing an office building and it's going to be an A grade office, brand new, new finishes, great. And there are no A grade offices in the CBD, therefore you couldn't get rates. You had to benchmark using Rosebank or Sandton. If that's what you did, you would have to also tell me that. So I'm just gonna go to another Excel example that we will run through, and then next week we'll start with something else. But you can always just ask questions with regards to feasibility. I'm worried at the rate you guys are being kicked out of the class and rejoining that you're missing out. Any questions thus far? So you understand the pipeline, you understand what you need to do. Guys, if you're quiet, me, I think everything is fine.
Ma'am?
I'm listening, ma'am.
Oh, I wanted to ask that can you please just repeat what you said about Rosebank being our benchmark?
So what I'm saying is if you're going to develop an office block, right? So the CBD is full of old office buildings. So the rental rates there, if they say like 124 a square meter, they're talking about like buildings that look like your Carlton Center, old buildings. So now if you're going to build a new office block, it will definitely be looking better than any of the office buildings in the CBD. So when you determine how much you should rent it out for, you can't use the buildings close to you as benchmarks because then you're offering a brand new building. Okay. So let's say you are selling a brand new car in a second-hand market. And they say, well, in this market, cars usually go for 50,000, but your car is brand new. So what you should do is look at how much do brand new cars go for. I see secondhands go for 50,000, but mine is not a secondhand. So how much do they sell brand new cars for? So you'd have to find out from people who've sold a brand new car. So same with offices. If you're going to build an A grade office, so offices are graded A plus, A, B plus, B minus, so And I think in the CBD we have like C grade. So your A plus is like the most luxurious office building, like your Discovery buildings, those offices, your Cecil building that you find in Sentin. So obviously you're not gonna build anything like that, but it will still be brand new. So it can be comparable with the offices that are there. So how do you determine what your rate should be? Because if everyone is charging 124 and you're thinking, I'm going to charge 250, you're in the wrong neighborhood. The people there can't afford that. So there is that balance that you need to strike. And what I'm saying is you can go look at similar offices in Rosebank to say, okay, how much do they charge? But then you look at Rosebank, you look at the CBD, and somehow you have to come down to CBD level, but not charge the same thing as old buildings. Does that clarify it for you?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Yes, Matsidiso. I see you're very polite. You're always raising your hand, even when I say I can't see hands. Your hand is. Please, just for Thursday evenings, let's not be polite, eh? Okay, go ahead.
Ma'am, I wanted to ask with regards to the question you just answered, using Rosebank as sort of a benchmark. That area where that space is, I've seen that space, and it I don't understand how we would be using Rosebank as a benchmark, because the space is not in a example, where the Standard Bank is. The surroundings of where Standard Bank is located is not as great as where that space is located. So when we pricing that, do we regard the surrounding?
Absolutely. So what you've just said is, I'm saying to you, how much do new buildings go for? And there are no new buildings in that neighborhood. So you look at another neighborhood to say, okay, this is how much new buildings go for in that neighborhood. However, so this is your Rosebank. However, this building is not in Rosebank, so it doesn't have the same surroundings. And like you say, it's not where banks, it's not Bank City. What is it? The one Simmons, where Standard Bank is at the top there. That's what you mean, right?
Yes.
Where the Standard Bank building is, that area is cleaner, and then as you move down that street, it gets dirtier towards Bree Street, or where the Bree taxi rank is, and the building we were talking about, or the site we're talking about, is closer to the taxi rank, it's closer to the dirty part of town. So when you come up with how much you can rent the building for, you could say, in as much as this building looks like the ones in Rosebank, unfortunately, its surroundings do not do it justice. So I don't know if you were in the economics class last year and if you did residential valuations, but the rule is always with residences, your house, if you want to sell your house for the best or highest price, it must not be the best looking house in the neighborhood. So you have the worst looking house in a great neighborhood. I don't know if that makes sense, right? So your neighbors' houses would look better than yours. And because of the neighborhood aesthetic, you can sell your house for a much higher price than what it's worth, because then it's in an upmarket area. However, if your house is the best looking in the neighborhood, unfortunately, your neighbors are going to bring its value down. So they kind of break, when you average it out, it's like, yes, your house may look like it's a 5 million house. However, you're surrounded by houses that sell for 1.2 million. So why should I pay 5 million in Kibla Park when I can get a house in Bryanston for the same amount, type of thing? Does that make sense, Didi? Or am I speaking in
Yes, it makes
tongues?
sense.
Thank you.
No, it makes sense. Thank you.
All right. There was something I touched on last week. Now it hit me because I spoke about your cash flow projection, and I just want to show you, you don't have to do it for, you can do it, it's great, but and I'll share this because it makes life easier where you change the numbers. I'll just show you. But I was talking about an S curve when it comes to, let me just see if, I don't know if you were seeing it, but let me just see if I can share it. Cash flow simulator. So I'm just, because this is not that economics where I'm teaching you cash flow projections from building. So this is, I think I mentioned the S curve to say when you work out. So this is, it's not a very perfect S. So this is projected cash flow for your construction. So when a project starts. So this is a 5 million project. So you'll see here, if you change, so you can change the values here and then it will give you. So this is a 5 million project. It's starting 1 September and you start with the planning, right? And then you start, and then there's construction. So it's like 1 September until June 28, 1 September 2017, June 2018. So this is, okay, it doesn't include the planning, it's just the construction. So you look at, so for instance, if you say a project is going to cost 5 million to build, at what point do you spend how much of that 5 million? You know, so these are all the different times where you're paying the contractor, you know, so it's cumulative. So you'll start paying him a certain amount. So the amounts are here. I just, so this is the first certificate. And then the second certificate, 350, and the cumulative amount becomes 600. So that is where the amounts go, you know, third certificate, fourth certificate, and then at the end of it, your cumulative is 5 million. So this is a simplified version because it's not including escalation. It's not including any variations. We work on 5 million and that's it. Your cash flow will look slightly different when you start having variations and all of that. But basically what we say is the contractor will start spending money there and then cumulatively it goes up as you pay the certificates. And then it peaks at some point. And then as the project goes towards the end here, you can, from here, it would suddenly sort of just go down. Towards the end, it starts going down. And this is why it's called the S-curve. So when you're working on the escalation, all right, so we say in today's terms, the project will cost 5 million, right? However, if we're only going to start the project next year, what is 5 million in terms of next year? And you say, okay, it will be 5.8 million. And then, so when we start next year and we say this project is going to cost 5.8 million, how much of that are we going to spend? So when you show the client the cash flow, and I just want you to understand why it's necessary. When you show the client the cash flow to say, okay, according to my predictions, the first certificate will need 250,000. The understanding is the client doesn't have those 5 million just sitting waiting for this project. Clients have money doing other things. And if you're only going to need the full amount towards the end, it will be the 5 million towards the end. He can put certain money somewhere and have enough. So when you do your certificates, you would show them that, okay, this first certificate is 250. We predict that the next one will be so much. So the client knows to put that money aside for the next month so that they are prepared to pay the contractor the next certificate. This also works as a baseline. So when you are actually running the project, you can see that we had predicted that the first certificate will be 250,000. Now this contractor works so fast, your first certificate is 450. That means in terms of your planning, when the client should have a certain amount of money, you are lagging behind, okay? So I think I mentioned the S-curve and I said I would show you what it is, but this is what the S-curve is, that progressive projected expenditure. So this is a projection. You are telling the client, this is how much the project will cost, and this is when we will need the money over the 10-month period that we believe we will build the facility. Obviously, if you're doing a government project, nothing ever gets finished in 10 months there. So this 10 months will become 30 months, and this curve will look nothing like what we're looking at, because now it just stretches over a long time. Okay, so you have those bar charts presenting the cash flow. So this is 250, then it goes up. So you see the numbers are there on your y-axis. It goes up, 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 and then it sort of peaks there, and then it starts to, you can see when I said to you from here, the graph would start going down. So that's why it's always called an S. So it starts low, goes all the way up, and then it sort of starts to taper down. So if we were to drag the period much longer, it would do that S that starts going down. Okay. I don't know if you remember me speaking about the S curve last week and if this makes sense to you. Please just tell me. I just remembered that I had promised that I would show you what a cash flow projection would look like for construction. Okay, I don't know what the silence means. All right, I will just assume you understand what I'm talking about. And if I ask questions about a projected construction projected cash flow projection, you'll tell me what curve it follows and why it follows that particular curve. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing this and just go on to the simplified version of what I tried to show you last week. Mm.
Ma'am, are you silent or is it just me?
I am silent because I'm trying to open the Excel document, the simplified version that I want to take you through.
Oh, okay.
So I should have one of those slides that still open, but I'm just go. I am still here. I'm just trying to open it. Sorry.
No problem.
This loaned laptop is not great. It's giving me a hard time. I can't even save documents. It takes forever. Okay, so this was something I did. I think we did it together in class last year. And I thought, oh, look. It won't open. Okay. So we had identified a piece of land in Orange Farm as a class. Well, I found somebody sent me that piece of land and they wanted to develop something. So I did an exercise for them and yeah, and then they took it. But I just decided to show the class. So we decided that we would, let me just see if I have a photo of the place. It's on the other laptop, sorry. But it's a piece of land. It's an open space in Orange Farm, in an extension, a new township. So we were looking at it and thinking a shopping center there because of the demographics. So if you know your malls that you before shopping malls would be like in towns in suburban areas, but now you find there's a mall in Tembisa, a mall in Vosloorus, a shopping center. I mean, like just very closely. So this was the template I gave the class, which I thought was simpler than the last one that I showed you last week, which sort of gives everything, but I found it very complicated when you're doing your first feasibility study. So you have the cover, which is there, and the cover would have like your company name and all of that, development of new shopping center. And I said Orangeville because, yeah, I didn't have all the details, so it was a made up, but I had shown them a photo. And then the summary. So this would be coming from all your other tabs. Then the notes. So when I say to you, list your limitations, all of that. So you see, this is your notes, your basis of estimate. So the estimated costs are based on the conceptual architectural drawing prepared by ABC architects. So obviously you have like line drawings or whatever, February 2025. And then the costs are as at June 2025 with a separate allowance for escalations. Because then if you're using June costs and you're only going to develop next year in September, that estimate of yours is useless, because then the client doesn't know how much they will spend then. And what's important to them is, I'm not building now, I'm building then. How much am I going to spend? So it's almost like with moneyed parents who have, those trust fund babies, planned kids. So the parents will sit with a financial planner even before the baby is born to say, okay, fine. So your baby is due on the 4th of October, 2026. Yes. So there will be 6 in a particular year. They're going to start nursery school when they're 3. Yeah. Okay. So they sit down and they say, okay, fine. We're at 0 years. On such and such a date, they'll be starting nursery school. You want them to go to, I don't know, there's that nursery school. I forget the name, but it's very expensive. And at one point, they had an accident in Bedfordview where a cupboard, a steel, it was a steel bookshelf that fell on a child and he was killed. But, you want one of those, or you want to send them to the Ridge. And they say, okay, per month, the Ridge charges 12,000 now. How much do we see it becoming in 3 years' time? If it's 12,000 now, how much do you think it would have escalated by or increased by in 3 years? And so, okay, fine. So 12,000 a month now, over 10 months, that's 120,000. We think in 3 years' time that 120 would have morphed into 150,000 or 160. So how much do you need to save now in order to have 150 then? Okay. And then when they start school, how much are you going to need? So that's basically what you're doing here, but you're doing it with a building and you're working on a much shorter timeline, because then if you're looking at a child, then we think, okay, if they're going to be born in October 2026, in what year will they do matric? Okay, how much are university costs now? How much will they be after they finish matric? And then they tell you how much you can save now in order to be able to take your child to university in 19 years' time, type of thing. So you will state that your rates are as at which time, so that when I look at your estimate, I can say, okay, this estimate was relevant for 2025 June. So I need to escalate it from June. I don't know if you guys have ever covered escalation in economics, but if you have, this will make sense. Then you will say your mechanical cost or specialist costs. You see electrical installation costs are based on estimated rates per square meter as per information provided by an electrical engineer. So these are the notes I want, professional fees as per the agreed fees with client. So you can use the gazetted fee tariffs for the fees, or you can use gazetted fee tariffs as a base, and then you offer a discount to the client. So you say the fees is what we agreed. Or some clients will say, I will not accept a fee basket that's higher than 18% or 20%. And then you work within that and you speak to your other professionals. And then because it's a feasibility study, you do not have structural information. The design is generally what the architect has made, and you are making assumptions to say this is how much the structure will cost. You don't have that information. So you make a lot of assumptions, and you need to state what assumptions you made. And then the scope of the building, it includes the construction of a new shopping center, the associated bulk services, and external works. Okay. And then program, you say the estimated cost base date is March 2025. And then construction period, 11 calendar months, 10 working months. So you work out what your construction period is. You also have to work out how long it's going to take you to plan. And then, so when do you think construction will start? On the 2nd of September 2025, we're being ambitious here. And then we will finish 22nd August 2026. All right. And then, like I said, if we don't have indices, I think here I speak about MFA fourth quarter. It's no longer even there. It's now BER. So I don't have those indices. But I just made assumptions. So prior to construction, this is the escalation we will give to the contractor. During construction, 0.35. All right. And that 0.35 will be multiplied by 0.8 because you don't pay the money all at once. Because of that S-curve, you pay money at different times. So the escalation will not be the same throughout the project. So with the things that you do early, you'll pay less escalation. But the ones that come in late, that's when you feel the escalation more. Okay. And then you can state your exclusions. Okay, capitalized interest in this instance, we excluded it. And then we had exclusions. So you say this following are specifically excluded. So this is an old thing. I don't know why I still have specialist air traffic and training equipment. It was from an old estimate that I did for ATNS. So you have special tenant requirements. Remember, you're building a shopping center. So game may come and say, we want particular shelves and whatever. That you say is not part of it. I'll give them a white box. They can put their fittings. And then works to mechanical service installation. So you will have like ducting and everything, but each store will come up with their own mechanical requirements, mechanical installation requirements. So if you walk into a mall, the most effective aircon is at Woolies. The other stores, not so much, right? So you can't lump them together. And then audio and visual installation, if there's any audio and visual, access control, security, any of that, whatever it is, okay? Kitchen equipment, a traffic impact study. So you do an environmental impact study and you do a traffic impact study when you're introducing a new development into a building. So an environmental impact study is how your new development will impact the current environment. So for instance, if you're going to build a filling station, so you've spoken to engine, you're going to have a garage, so a petrol filling station at the corner in a residential area. And the municipality, the approving body, would like to know that you did an environmental impact study and you see how that development will impact the area. So again, with your site, whatever it is that you're going to develop, I mean, you can decide you're going to build a filling station there and then the taxis can come fill up at your corner. What does it mean? How easy is it to enter that? Because the minute you build a petrol station, you are introducing traffic into the area. Can the roads there handle the amount of traffic? Will it be easy to get in and out? So you'll see if you move around, you'll see there are certain petrol filling stations that do better than others because they're accessible and because people want to be able to drive in and out. If that's a problem, generally the driving in is not so much a problem, and getting out becomes a problem. People will not come there, and it's going to affect your profitability. So that's why you do an environmental impact study. You also look at if it's going to introduce maybe pollution to the area and how you can contain that. And this is when you will do that advert in a newspaper to inform the community that there's a particular development, and then they are given a time period to comment. And if there are no comments received, the municipality will say, okay, we advertised it for a month, no comments, we can approve. But if there are comments, then the comments need to be addressed. And then with a traffic impact study, you look at the amount of traffic. So you have people literally counting cars, the amount of traffic on an average day, what happens, how much traffic is there during a peak, how much traffic is there at off-peak times. You know, so where I live next to a school. So the traffic peaks just before school starts because parents are rushing to drop their kids up at school. And then around 2, from 1:30 to 3:30, or actually 1:30 to 2:30, the traffic peaks again because it's pickup time. And then the other ones with sport, it's not heavy traffic anymore because it's just a few parents coming in. So when you do a traffic impact study, you look at what the traffic is like and what your new development, what sort of traffic your new development will introduce. So if you're building a shopping mall, you're going to introduce traffic. Can the street or the road handle that amount of traffic that you want to introduce? If not, that's when the municipality will say, oh no, you're going to have to, if you want us to approve your development, widen the road, create a shoulder, install traffic lights so that we don't have accidents. There's some sort of control, put in a traffic circle, all of that. So that would have been informed. So there's a cost to doing the traffic impact study. And based on what the traffic impact study says, there may be a cost to an extra cost to the project, maybe not. So those are your notes. Then you look at land costs. You can work out the land costs here. We had worked out that we'll buy the piece of land for 8.8 million, so around 9.9 million. And then the legal costs, we said they're already included, the commission on sale included. There was no roads upgrades, no electrical bulk contributions that the municipality had asked for. We had excluded them because we had not spoken to the municipality. Then you have your improvement cost, which is your estimate. I think I've shared this with you guys. It should be in your notes. If not, Duko, just tell me it's not, and then I'll share it. So this is the estimate your building works. So we say, okay, parking. This is for the shopping mall. How many bays do you need? Obviously, you can see we were smoking our socks here. How are you going to have a shopping mall with 25 bays? And then a parking bay takes about 28 square meters. So the 28 square meters include, remember you have that parking bay, and then there's the area that you reverse into and turn and then drive off. So we allocate 25 square meters each to have enough of that. And then we say, okay, how much will it be to develop the base? So this is on-grade parking outside, you know. And then if it's in a basement, it would be part of the building. And then obviously it's a lot more expensive. Okay. So you can see there, I still have, I think I have the wrong estimate here. I still have the corporate office, but this is supposed to be like your shops and everything. And then we worked out the square meter, and then how much is it per square meter, right? You get 20 million. So we say, okay, fine. We're now at 21 million plus the parking for the shopping center. So this is a very small center. Then your electrical installations for the shopping center, your electronic installations for the shopping center. So you work it out per, at a basic level. When you're doing an order of magnitude, you work out the rate per square meter. Obviously, the quantity surveyor would be able to tell you because they've got projects in their database where they say, well, I've done a shopping center. It was this size. And you say, okay, fine. So how much was the electrical installation per square meter? And what they do is they look at the total area of the building versus the total cost of electrical installation. So they divide the electrical installation by the area of the building and say it was 320 a square meter, 720 or something like that. So there's no shortcut. You ought to have done projects and have a database of rates to come up with these 450 and 320s. And then your HVAC installation also. So these rates are very low. You'll never find this in practice. So this was an example, like I say, just a simplified version. So you have that 3,882 square meters at 380, and then that would be like 1.4 million. And the reason we're using the entire square meter is because, for one, you don't know how many air cons you're going to need. We haven't gotten to that point of detail yet. So even your rate, because it's not like every square meter will have aircon, so your rate needs to take that into consideration. And then you look at your building management system, so your integrated system, where there's a control room and there's somebody who will check, and they will say, the bulb on passage, whatever, is blinking, please go change it, all of that, or controlling the lights, controlling the aircon, that central control of a building. Is that something you're going to have for this building or not? You allow money for it. Plumbing and installation, so this is sanitary fittings and all of that. You allow a certain amount. Fire protection, so fire protection, fire evacuation and suppression systems, you allow a certain amount for that. It has become a lot more expensive. It never used to be. Fire has just become very, very expensive. And I think if there's one thing you don't want to forget in your estimate on this project where the building bent down and you're rebuilding, whatever it is you're rebuilding, whether you're rebuilding an orphanage or whatever it is, well, I need it to be financially viable. So it can't be an orphanage because then they can't rent. So whatever it is, please make sure that your fire is up to date. And then you have your specialist services. So it could be signage installation, it could be kitchen equipment, audio visual, vertical transportation, which is your lifts. But 3,000 square meters is probably one story, so no lifts required. Or if you have another floor above and you have wheelchair bound people, you are going to have a lift because you have to make the building accessible to everyone. And then if there's any access flooring, any window treatment, blinds, this will not work for a shopping center. Then you have your furniture, fittings and equipment. This is an allowance, but I mean, what furniture do you want to put in a shopping center? You could have those benches where the parking is, but that's about it. So the 3.5 is a bit of overshooting. Then you have your external works. So your site clearance, before you start building, you're going to clear the site. You're going to do your bulk excavations. You're going to do your bulk filling. Maybe the site is on a sloping area, so you fill up and cut and fill. And you will allow for sundries and then soil drainage. So this is your sewer system, linking to municipality services. So you would have toilets, and then you have to link, you have to have your own pipe works within the property before you even link to municipality. Water supply, same thing. You can connect to the municipality mains, but the water has to be run through your building and accessible. The one kitchen behind the Woolies should be able to access the water, and the other kitchen on the opposite end, all of that. So you measure that and how much it's going to cost. And then you have your perimeter fencing and your gates at the small. So you have your clear view. And then you have like a base wall for the clear view. You build a brick wall 1 meter high, and then you put the clear view. And part of this, we do this a lot. I don't think it will be necessary where you are building because of where the site is. However, the people who would break into buildings, they would dig under the clear view and go under. So if you put a ground beam and then brickwork, it becomes difficult for them to dig under the fence. And this is why it's now sitting on a brick wall. Doesn't look too great, but it's a safety thing. If safety was no issue, we would not have the wall. Then you have your gates. So you would have the big gate for the cars, and then maybe you will have a pedestrian gate because this is in the township and most of your patrons will be walking. Then there's like landscaping, and maybe you want a water feature somewhere. I know Maponya Mall is it elephants or something, but there are features there. So you want to give your mall a certain look. And then road works. as well. So maybe you think that where the mall is going to sit, that Sontonga Street is going to need a shoulder or something like that, or even just the roadworks within the center itself, you know, where when they drive into the parking, and then you have to have a sidewalk for people, and then you can upgrade the adjacent road, like I say, Sontonga Street needs a shoulder, and any of the intersections, so that it becomes easier to turn into, you know. And then here you can see we were going to install traffic lights, so traffic signals, road link services. Maybe this is where the Gautrain passes and you're like, I'm gonna ask them if I can put up a station so they stop there and people can get on and off, like type of thing. It all depends on what it is that you're doing. And then you have your on-grade parking, 100 bays. Maybe it's on the outside, whatever, because we had parking there at the top as well. Then electricals, you see we're on the external. We had electrical articulation inside the building. So now you have external services, electrical. So your high voltage power supply, you know. And so sometimes they say, well, you're going to have to put a mini sub just outside and you have to pay Eskom a deposit for them to, it's their own infrastructure, but you pay for it, right? You pay a deposit and they will come and install it, and then you can connect for it. And then you have your external lighting, your perimeter lighting around the fence, and then any builder's work and allowance for builder's work that's associated with that. Because as you do this, the builder is going to have to come and make it look nice, and then you have any external electronic services, so your cameras, perimeter fence surveillance, IP network for system communications, intrusion detection. So maybe you're going to put an electric fence and put beams and all of that. And then any common infrastructure, bulk electrical contribution. Okay. And then your access control, surveillance facilities. Again, that's just outside. So it all depends. With some developers, they'll tell you, I want surveillance, like at the gate, you read the number plate and you can tell whose it is. And like, okay, so you're going to have to be connected to E90s. Can they allow that? All of that, so that, you know, they say we can turn away people who are driving in with fake number plates, type of thing. And then you add your main contractors, preliminaries in general. And in the end, you're sitting at about 134 million. Then you look at escalation. So from the 1st of March, when we are planning the building, to the 2nd of September, when we start construction. So planning is going to take us 6 months. And if by today's standards, which is June, I think it was June 2025 when we did this building is going to cost us 134 million. How much is it going to cost us when we start? How much would that cost have increased by when we start work in September? You know, 6 months from now. So 6 months from our June. Remember, this was based in June. And then we said, okay, this would increase by, so if you go back to, where was it? Notes. We said prior to construction, our escalation is 0.4%. Okay, 0.4% monthly. So now you'd say 0.4 multiplied by 6 months, and then it would give you that 2.4. And then you multiply the 2.4 by the 134, and it gives you 3.1 million. So that's your interest. And then you say, okay, fine, monthly escalation during construction, right? It's 0.35, which we have in the notes, and construction is going to take 11 months. So we say in total, it will be 3.85. And because of the cash flow factor, we're only going to pay, the cash flow factor is 0.6, and then you also multiply it by 0.85 because, let me just see where I did the calculation. Ooh, I didn't. Let me just see if it's open. So if it confuses you, it's fine. You can consult me. It won't open it because the network is unable to refresh and all of that. But what happens is you look at the amount, the 134, plus this, right? So it's now 137. By the time we start construction, which is the 2nd of September, this is how much the project is costing. And then you say this amount multiplied by the 385, which is the 0.35 multiplied by 11 months. Okay, so in total, your total escalation over the construction period is 3.85%. And then you multiply it by the 0.6, which is the cash flow factor. So if you remember the S-curve, the 137,000 is not going to be spent all at once. So it's going to be spent over time. And because it's over a cash, you're not going to get the 3.85 throughout. So the bits that you pay earlier, you will get less escalation. So that's what it needs to account for. So it gives you 3.17. However, this amount includes the contractor's profit. So his rates there, your square meter rates, they include the contractor's profit. So we give escalation on everything except the contractor's profit. So generally, the contractor's profit is calculated to be at about 15%. So we only pay 0.85. But I don't know why it's 390 here. So we pay 0.85 and it should give us that 2.6. So I can't work out how we end up at 390 here. So that is how you work out the escalation. Or I think I didn't use the 0.85 with that particular one. So that is where your escalation is. Sorry, I've had a long day. Then I will correct this and share it with you so that it follows what I'm talking about. Then you have your professional fees. So you could have a fee basket. You see, we had a fee basket of 48%, very, very high. It comes from somewhere. So this is your core consultants, your architect, your project manager, your quantity surveyor, civil and structural engineer, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, fire engineer. So under mechanical, you'll have wet services and fire, and then HVAC. Okay. So with a project of 140 million, 67 million for professional fees, this is exorbitant. Hey, it's high. So generally, you would be looking at, let's say, 25%. 25% fee basket. I think that would be fair. So let's see how much it will be. Some clients are still stuck on 18%, but if you use the fee scales, you're looking at between 20 and so we would be at 25%, we would be like at 35 million, which is still a lot for professional fees. If we were working on 18%, would be like a 25 million professional fees. So this is exorbitant, and then over and above that, and like I said, there's calculations hidden here. Okay, there it opens. It didn't open the other time, and I just want to see where the 67. It's still not showing, so it's a hard input. Anyway, so then you have your specialist professional fees. So your traffic engineer who does the traffic impact study, his fee is not included here. Your environmental specialist who does the environmental impact study, their fees are not included here. The guy who's going to do the geotech study, the guy who's going to do all of those things, they're not included. So you will have an allowance for the specialist. Then with this particular project, there was an independent architect review that the client wanted. And then we had to allow money because he would review the design and advise the client whether it was good or not. And then the client had wanted a model built. So when you're proposing this building, he wanted, that model that they will do with boxes. If you've ever seen architecture students, they walk around with boxes and stuff because they're building models. So they wanted a model built. And this is the allowance, which said this is what it would cost to build the model the client wanted to see before. This was a huge site. So the first portion, this was what we were doing, was phase 1. And they were saying, okay, what happens to the rest of the site? So there was somebody who was hired to do master planning to say this is what will happen to the rest of the site, so that the master planning fee. This is not necessary for your project, but I just wanted you to see what's possible. Then there's the development manager fee, and this is the guy who managed the development and then make sure that we go out to advertise the property at the right time so that we start getting tenants. And then the facilities manager who would advise in terms of as and when we choose specifications for the building, and the facilities manager says, please don't put carpets, rather put vinyl. It's easier to maintain all of that, especially if you're going to keep the building. And then we had the BBBE advice. So this was the mega project where I copied all the template I used, and we had a BBBE advisor because this was like, it was at the time it was a 1.4 billion project. So there was also interest to see that whichever company we appoint, because for mega projects you're going to look at these big contractors, that they would be employing smaller companies that are BEE. So the BE advisor's job was they would present their structure to her, and then she would advise on that and say no. And then there was the design modeling allowance. They wanted a design model because then they were going to go to the financiers to show them the models when they ask for money. And then this was, I think, 92 million. And then it took our 140 to 232. And then there was, remember, you are at early stages. So there was a 10% contingency, any other thing that may come that we have not seen. And we ended up at 256, right? So that was your estimate for the building, including escalation. And what it comes down to is 66,000 per square meter to develop, and including, so it's everything. Then you look at your general costs. Ooh, that's small. So you have your assessment rates. So during your building period, that site, the city still wants its rates and taxes. So the city charges a certain amount. So from when the project starts, the planning and whatever, we have, it's 17 months, it's the 6 months plus the 11 months construction, 6 months planning. So in that time, we will be paying rates, right? So this is how much the rates would be, we estimate, because the employer still has to pay. So the employer it may not be part of the construction project. Remember, you're speaking to an employer, so you're not just speaking construction, you're speaking the costs to the employer in that time. Leasing fees, 5-year vacant space, lease on vacant space only. So you run that, and how much the leasing fee will be, development fee, development contingency, developers advertising board. You pay for the advertising board. How much are you going to buy it for? And then you erect it there. And then you raising financing, how much is it going to cost you? The admin of it. Bond registration fee. So when you take money from a bank, they register a bond against your property, you pay for that. And then again, when they register the property in your name, when you've finished paying the loan, you'll pay again. So your insurance cost, for the property, we assume that over a period of that leasing period, it will be 0.25 of the total improvement cost. Do you have a model that is to scale? No, we don't have that, so we had excluded it. Pre-launch expenses, so when they launch malls and they launch buildings and all of that, and they have brochures and they have that is planned, and that is a cost to the developer, and you need to factor that in. Any legal costs that you may incur, marketing and promotion, town planning, if there's any town planning things that will need to be done. So this is like in millions, so that 3 is not 3,000. And then interim rates, you have that for the construction, well, not the construction period, but up until people take, this would be your utility rates. Then you have your capitalized interest on land. So that's if the developer had sold the land, that 8 million, how much interest would he be making? So that's an opportunity cost. Interest on VAT, on land cost. So you do pay VAT if you're not VAT registered. So we just assume that we're not VAT registered here. And then improvement interest on improvement costs. So that money that you are borrowing, the 250 million from the bank, how much will the interest be? So this is it's a cost because this is what you're paying. And if you had put that money in the bank, you would be gaining interest. And then let's just go, so you can check all the other interests, general costs, interest on general costs, whatever general cost you've incurred. So like under your land, those bulk things that you had to pay, a bulk contribution. And then the cash flow factor here is 0.4, and then whatever VAT, the interest on the VAT. So you want to account for every cent, and then you have your rental for the shops that will be there, and you say, okay, fine, game will take 852 square meters at, let's say, 180 per square meter, whatever, and then you would work out. And then parking, how much income would you be generating from parking? And okay, so this is the professional fees. You can see I had removed everything because the scales were not working. But yeah, that is what I just wanted to take you through. And I think the most important part was the improvement cost bit, in terms of what, because then everything, the bulk of the cost sits with you building. Buying the land and all of that is one thing, but once you build, that's where the bulk of the cost goes. And the client just needs to know. Do you have any questions? Okay, in the absence of questions, I am going to stop here, and I will send an announcement once I've loaded the quiz and give you a bit of time to do the quiz, okay? Because we haven't done anything like that in this class, and there is really no proof that we have been having class. It could be we come here and we share jokes, nothing happens, you know. So I need to give you a quiz, especially now that the test is going to be in August only. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining the class. Because you don't have questions.
Can I just ask quick?